Hello and welcome to the Rusted Brush. I'm doing a tier list, and I have a special guest here. I'm here with Dan from Wargame. Why don't you introduce yourself here?
Hey, Raph, thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah,
I'm excited for this, man. I know we've been talking about this for about a week now, but on my channel, I do a lot of reviews of multi-part plastic sets for basically exclusively non-Games Workshop stuff. But I think, like many people, I started out with Games Workshop products and specifically sixth edition. So this is sort of where I started in the hobby. So I can talk about this kind of indefinitely. So I've been really excited to go over this list with you.
yeah, awesome.
Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, like you said, this was where I started was with sixth edition. So
Mhm.
let's move into this. I'm gonna explain the ranks that I put down here.
Sure.
So at F we got pretty bad even for their age. So this is just gonna
Yeah.
be for models that were just terrible, basically.
Yeah.
C, we have okay models, but they're showing their age. So, like, they looked okay back in the day, but they don't hold up now.
Mhm.
B is good models that still hold up, but there's just better alternatives nowadays. And A is excellent models that still hold up. There might be some better alternatives, but they're still pretty good. And then S is they're better than certain equivalents nowadays. Um,
Perfect.
So yeah, let's just jump into this. I organized them by their faction. So the first one we have is the Beastmen Regiment. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know how you want to go back and forth here, but I so the Beastmen Regiment, if anybody's not familiar with it, was really cool because it was actually, as far as I'm aware, one of the only sets Games Workshop released that was actually like two different types of models in one. Because if I remember right, they had both the gore and the ungore
Ungor.
in it,
Yeah, yeah,
right, as different screws.
yeah. I when I was going through everything, I kind of forgot that was how they did that. So that was pretty cool. Um, I'm personally not a fan of the Beastmen models. I don't know if you. I have a video on me doing Beastmen, and I'm doing them
Hmm.
completely different because I don't like them, but that's more of a
Yeah,
personal taste rather than the models are bad. But
that's generally like when I was going through making my notes, I found that was a problem of mine that I know like objectively some of these sets that I thought were awesome are terrible, right? But it's
yeah,
just because it was what I grew up building and playing with, so I had to be really careful with that. The Beastmen, I think I'm the same way, where I just find them kind of boring from a painting like hobby standpoint
hmm
because there's not that much on them. But from a sculpting standpoint, I actually think they hold up all right. Like the fur is still really good. They have little details on the weapons, like the cleavers have little like rings
yeah,
in a lot of them too. And I think credit has to be given to the fact that this is like one of the first, if not only, Games Workshop like multi sets. So I ended up giving it a B. Like I think if I was just choosing purely for myself, I would do C. But I think some credit has to be given there for those various other elements that we discussed.
yeah. That's true, and they do have some good like small accessories for kit bashing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess B is good for me as well. I kind of agree with almost all your points there. I have to say, um, yeah, B is fine with me. Uh, moving
Cool. Fair enough.
moving on, we got Bretonia Archers. This kit I do kind of like, but I really like the more grim, dark kind of vibe that sixth edition brought to Bretonian Archers.
Mm-hmm.
Before they were a lot more historical, and you can really tell the difference between the Perry brothers' influence from the fifth edition Bretonia versus like the newer I don't know who sculpted these Bretonians, but I know it
Yeah.
wasn't the Perry brothers. Um, yeah, give me your thoughts on this kit.
I agree completely. So some of my favorite artwork from Games Workshop, full stop, is actually from the sixth edition Bretonian book.
Yeah,
And what I think they did such a good job with the sculpting on these figures. I know we'll get to the other sets too, but the archers are no exception, where it really feels like they captured the feeling of the art in the models. You had mentioned like the grimdark feeling of like now there's like chains and skulls and stuff and like an emaciated dog on the sprue, right? Like it feels like a much darker world than what we saw with much more brightly colored Bretonians of fifth edition. So I do like, I guess my only critiques of this set and maybe this Bretonian range in general is that we have so many fantastic alternatives now.
yeah,
And so I was having a hard time kind of weighing that. Like, just take Victrix, for example. I'm about to review their new foot sergeants tomorrow, and they're incredible models. So they're archers. from the Bretonia range are good. I guess the only other critique I might have is that they're kind of stiff. They're functionally monopose models.
Yeah, they
right?
are very monopose. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of kit bashing options to it.
hmm
And it
But they're
comes.
good. They had good accessories because you could also include what was it called, the stakes that they could go behind,
Yeah,
like the entrenched position that had bits for that, right?
and the braziers as well, because they could have like the
Right,
fire
right.
arrows as well. Yeah, it does come with that stuff, and that makes like even good terrain as well, or just like little
Agreed.
battlements you can add. I don't know. I would say B.
I have B written down as well. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're gonna be on the same track here.
hmm
All right, Bretonia Knights Errant and Realm.
Yeah, I think similar feelings here. Maybe at the time when they came out, it was like mind blowing, world ending cool, like how great these models look
Yeah,
compared to some other plastics we'd seen. But it is, for me, firmly in the camp of like, there are definitely better alternatives. The Knights in particular are, it's kind of tough because you've got Victrix, their medieval knights are incredible. You have Wargames Atlantic just put out their medieval knights.
yeah,
Fireforge has medieval knights. Even Conquest Games, a little known company that produces multi-part plastic, has a medieval knight set. So there's just so many alternatives that all look really good. Yeah, like my only critique of this set is that there's better options out there, and uh, I think like the barding on the horses, I was never really a fan of, like the crest that's sculpted in, because that, to your point about making it more difficult for conversion work.
yeah.
I'll say here, I did end up, this set is a B for me as well, just because that I think that the sculpting was so good at the time when it came out. But what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, like you're totally right, and like even like I like their helmets a lot and like their crests
Yeah,
on their helmets, but then like Victrix has like that fantasy knight heads, and so does Fireforge, so it's
right,
not as unique, and I think a lot of that has to do with Bretonia also being discontinued for such a long time that there
right.
was a need for like the fantasy kind of knight, and so many different companies put out basically the same kind of product, and
Yeah,
it
around the same time too. It's crazy.
yeah, and it I don't know. I feel like there's just more modern options that are better now. I gotta give it a B as well. B for Bretonia.
Yeah, B for Britannia. Very nice.
All right. And the last one for Bretonia we have is Men at Arms.
Yeah, again, similar feelings,
Yeah.
especially to the archers. I just noticed too that I feel like you'd mentioned the grim dark aesthetic that is really prominent with the archers and the men at arms by extension. I actually think is missing from the knights. Maybe that's my only other critique of the knights, is that they feel a little less gritty than, and that's partly because we have knights versus peasants, right? I
Yeah,
think
I
that was
think that
part of what we're going
yeah.
for.
Yeah, that's the point of them, I think. But I kind of agree with you. I think uh, maybe more grim accessories on the knights, Errant or
Yeah,
Realm.
that would help. I
Yeah.
agree. More like chains and stuff to make them. I don't know. I don't know what it needed, but it just needed something to make it feel a little more aligned with the imagery. Men at Arms, though, I mean, again, when this kit came out, it was like, oh my god, like this is so cool. And I know it was the foundation of lots of conversions, like in the 40K realm with
Yeah.
feudal worlds and stuff. I saw so many awesome conversions based on these models. Again, they're a little static in retrospect, but the design is fantastic with the kettle helms, large tower shields, the halberds, like the pole arms they carried, are all really great.
And again, a lot of accessories. Like I think they also have the dog, but they have like the
Yeah,
musician with the drumsticks, and they have frogs on them.
yeah. There was like a kind of large friar model, like shaved head guy
Oh
that
yeah,
had
that's
little like
right.
reliquary bits that he could carry. Yeah, it's really cool set.
Yeah, that's
But
another
again,
thing. Like the set had a fat character. Like how often do you see like a
I think it
different?
was one of the first I ever encountered in multi-part plastic, certainly.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, it was playing with different body types. So it's very cool. Anyway, B for Bretonia for me on this set too. I think it's great. We have some fantastic options from companies like I mentioned, Fireforge, Wargames Atlantic, Victrix. You should certainly look at if you're starting to get into the old world, just to kind of juxtapose your options. But it's still a great set from a detail and design standpoint.
Also, even Perry Miniatures has plastic stuff as well.
Absolutely, the Agincourt line. If you wanted to, again, they're very historical and well researched historical sets. Even I've seen a great like War of the Roses themed Bretonian armies using
Yeah,
their War of the Roses line.
for sure.
So there's lots of great options out there.
All right. I so part of me wants to put it at A because like I think it's a bit cooler than the rest, but I think that's on a cool factor and not just how the good the models are, so I think I'm going to put in B still.
Sure. I mean, I would even be fine with A. Like, I guess the only, like, with the differentiation between A and B being that there are better options on the market, that I guess is the only reason I would put it in the B category versus A.
And these models exist nowadays, and
yeah,
I don't know. I'm going for different things. Like, I'm starting Saga stuff, and I'm going all, Perry miniatures for that. So,
yeah.
All right. This one was interesting. I didn't realize this. The Dark Elf Warrior kit. This was the only multi-part Dark Elf kit, as far as I know.
It is, and in fact, it was certainly before 7th edition.
Yeah, before
when 7th. They started, doing lots under the Gav Thorpe banner. But they, in 6th edition, this was it, and it was because it was a multi-kit with the crossbowman, which was very cleverly designed. I think you had spear options and crossbow options all within one set. This was one of the first ones I encountered when I was doing notes, where it was like, I love this kit. I love building this kit. I love painting this kit. I love looking at them in battle reports. But objectively, especially these earlier 6th edition sets, like, because I imagine this was like 1998 or something when this came out. I don't know the exact year, but anything that has like the chunkier hands on it is usually the tell that it is an earlier 6th edition kit, and this is one of them, where especially the spear hands are quite large compared to the rest of the body. But the design, I think, is fantastic. What do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think it's really neat that, you get the spear, crossbows, and I assume you can just get hand weapons with this kit as well, I'm pretty sure.
Actually, there weren't. It was not until the 7th edition set that they included, and that's when they started like naming everything like dark shards and stuff like that, but they included a weapon option on, because they wanted to make it a multi-set. So they had a hand weapon, a spear option, and I can't remember if they then sold a separate set for the crossbowmen or if that just came in that set. But no, there was only like one command sword was the only real drawback with this one. But at the time in 6th edition, there wasn't an option to give spearmen hand weapons anyway. So
fair enough. Yeah, I gotta agree with the funky like big hands, and we're gonna see that in a few other kits, like you mentioned.
Sure are.
I personally think this is a C.
I give this a C as well, for the same reasons that I love the design. I love that Games Workshop did such a good job at differentiating their high elves and their dark elves from a design standpoint, and that their dark elves aren't just skulls, right, and a bunch of like gore and stuff. They really did a good job, I think, with even the difference between like using chainmail versus the scale mail that we see with the high elf range. That's well done, but it unfortunately does not hold up that well, I think, compared to modern kits that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I completely agree.
First kit too that had a female body. I don't know if you remember that. The torso.
Oh, that's right.
There was a female torso and then like one or two female heads, which is just, again, talking about different body types. Man, this was an era where Games Workshop was starting to play around with that, which is cool.
I forgot about that. Yeah, good mentioning that, because it's one of the few like plastic female like kits out there. Even like for a long time, I guess. Like probably, I'm trying to think what other sets had like. I guess the Wood Elves also, I think, had it. But
Wood Elves did, and then they have dedicated sets like Witches that came later.
That's right. Yeah.
But you're right, that for a very long time, this was one of the only sets that had like female body in it. So again, just neat little landmarks that 6th edition was starting to hit.
Fair. All right. My least favorite faction, Dwarfs. So I'm gonna not be biased about this as much as possible, but it'll probably sink through. Starting with the Dwarf Cannon.
Yeah, so I will balance you out as best as I can, because I love dwarves. I'm a dwarf player. I have an extensive dwarf army. However, I hate the 6th edition dwarf range. The cannon is a great example of what basically these figures, the warriors, the thunderers, and the cannon, I believe, are the three we're going to talk about. But these are essentially like multi-part versions of the Battle for Skull Pass kit that came, I think, around the same time. Maybe that was 7th edition, but anyway, the figures, there's just like, they look like bloated monopose models for me, especially in like the Thunderers. But I guess if we're talking about the cannon specifically, I don't like the detail on them. I don't think that it holds up. They all look kind of like swollen, like I know the dwarves are supposed to be short and stocky. Believe me, I know, but it doesn't look quite right. And the cannon in particular is horrible. It's got the tiny little wheels, like a little snub nosed revolver of a cannon, like we see in the Battle for Skull Pass kit. So I gave this a C. If there was a D option, I would have given it a D, just because I also don't like the design. But ended up giving it a C. But what are your thoughts as someone that doesn't like dwarves?
I'm kind of on the same. It's going to be pretty much the same complaint around all of them. There is,
Yeah.
I just don't like the aesthetics, but the other thing is there is not a lot of like different things you can do with their bodies or anything or make them look really cool. Like you said, their bodies are very like stocky and very mono pose basically. And
Yeah, and it didn't have to be, right? Because we saw that like with the sixth, like I guess it was actually a late fifth edition dwarf set, but the one that I thought was sixth edition that came just before this that had the two-part torso legs and it came with like a crossbow, great weapon option. Do you
yeah,
remember that one?
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right, that is. Oh, yeah. I
And
do
that
remember
one
that
had
sprue.
different issues. It had the same chunky hands. It had some other proportion issues with it, but I actually think those dwarves, because of that, they had a torso and leg that were separate. And we see that like Avatars of War has their multi-part plastic dwarf slayers.
Yeah.
That are fantastic. And we don't anyway. We don't see that here because all the bodies are like mashed together torso legs that all look. I know I'm putting it in a kind of inarticulate way, but kind of bloated to me. That, as you said, you can't do much with these figures except just glue arms onto them. So
Yeah, it's gonna go C.
yeah.
Maybe I should have added a D character, but I didn't want to have too many ranks here.
I overcomplicated. I agree. C,
Yeah.
C is funny.
One other thing that always bothered me about the dwarfs, they're supposed to be these engineers and like great guys. Mm-hmm. They don't have a great cannon. The Empire Great Cannon is just way better in rules and just in coolness fact. It just looks more menacing. But we'll go to that soon. All right. Dwarf Thunderers and Quarrelers are next.
Yeah, I think I hate these the most of the dwarf range, and it's because of what you just like. All of them look so awkward holding their guns, and that should be the coolest part of a dwarf army, especially for those that like gun line castle kind of designs. But they look really uncomfortable. Like all of them are holding them kind of at ready because they couldn't because of the bodies, right? The sculptors couldn't figure out a way to even get them into like firing poses. And especially considering what these kits were replacing, which was at the time the really fantastic metal sculpts of the Thunderers. These for me fall short. But what do you think?
I'm kind of on the same thought process there. Yeah, like also if you go to their Middle Earth line, like the Lord of the Rings stuff, they just have better dwarfs than that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a big disappointment. Like. And yeah, just the aesthetics of the dwarves I just never liked. But yeah, Quarrelers, like you said, they're really awkward looking. And again, there's not really much kit bashing or like there's not even a lot of multi-partness to them, right? It's just like their hands with the weapons, I believe.
Exactly. It is. That's it. You just glue the arms onto the bodies. There might be head options, but I can't. I feel like the beards were sculpted into the bodies.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like I think the heads be swapped out, but that's my frustration is that for me, plastic miniatures aren't just about being cheaper. Yes, they generally are, but it's about when we talk about multi-part plastic, the options that you can create where you can out of one figure theoretically create dozens of different variants of that figure, and that's where these sets fall short for me because they're so, again, I keep coming back to the word bloated. They are functionally monopose models. So at that point, it's like, well, why am I even doing this, right? I'd pay a premium for a better looking metal figure at that point.
So do you feel like an F or a C for this one?
I'm torn. I wrote down, I'm looking at my notes. I wrote C, I crossed it out. I wrote F, I crossed it out, and I settled on C because I didn't want to be too mean. But what do you think?
I'm feeling like F because, like, it ruins the point of being plastic. Like, I guess it is cheap. Like, they're not convertible at all. And like, I can make this complaint about modern GW kits as well with not being multi-part anymore. Gosh, the new Orc Boys for 40k, I hate.
Yeah, they're leaning into like at least those have the benefit of being like cool bro action poses, right? Like that's
True.
what they're doing for all these modern figures.
Yeah.
So I can't. I understand that these figures I don't understand because they don't look cool, right? The only thing they've got going for them is that they're cheap, and even that's by Games Workshop standards, right? Like they're not that cheap.
No.
But it's funny. I was considering too that like Mantic also struggles with their dwarf line in particular, but their I think it's called Iron Watch or something. Their Thunderers are probably some of the worst models they've ever made too. So maybe
Oof.
this isn't just a Games Workshop phenomena that nobody seems to be able to sculpt dwarves with guns very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think F is fair here.
All right. The next one we have is the Dwarf Warriors, the last one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be saying a lot of this. I don't know if you have any thoughts you wanted to expand on here. I feel like I don't want to monopolize the conversation too much.
No, it's all good. The only thing I really have to say about this is, like, I wish dwarves had like some different weapon options. I feel like it's just a boring trope to have them with like just axe, or like, I don't know. I feel like it'd be interesting to see dwarves with spears, but I mean that's like I think a lot of different dwarf kits.
Mm-hmm.
Not only Games Workshop does that kind of trope of axe has hammer or axe. But yeah, there's not a lot going on for this kit. It's got a little bit more, like, I guess, weapon options and some accessories, and I think you glue the shield separately, right?
You do, yes. You can mix and match the shields for a little bit more variety.
Well, that's...
But yeah, you're basically just picking a weapon arm, like which axe do you want to put in the hand, and then yeah, gluing a shield on. So I agree. I think this has more modularity than the Thunderers, certainly. But it suffers from a lot of the same problems, especially actually, like I'm now remembering, there are the cloaked bodies, because you could, in theory, make some of these into rangers.
Right.
And those were especially bad. Like when you look at it from the side, they are like as wide as they are tall.
Yep.
They're really thick figures. So I ended up giving this one a C.
Yeah, C I think is where I'm putting them too. I don't think they're as bad as the Dwarf Thunders and Cloyers, but they're definitely really bad.
Mm-hmm. But we have great dwarves from, not to tangent at all, but from the Oathmark range, talking about spear dwarves.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
You should check those out. Yeah, Oathmark. It's much more grounded fantasy, so like more like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings interpretation of dwarves than Games Workshop fantasy dwarves. But they have spear options, there are sword options, bow options. They have light dwarves, heavy dwarves. Anyway, there's lots to play with over there. And for me, I'm biased, but like one of the coolest dwarf conversions I ever did was the Gripping Beast Vikings, just like cutting the legs down a little bit. It makes, I think, way cooler dwarves than what you get from the Games Workshop line. But
yeah, that's way cooler sounding actually.
Yeah,
awesome. For me personally, if I ever wanted to do dwarves, I feel like they have a lot of or they did have a lot of nice gems in the Middle Earth line that I really love. But yeah, let's move on. And we're with the best faction of the game, Empire.
Yeah, we're both biased in that respect.
Yeah, I think we both love the humans, but I think most of our audiences probably do as well.
Sure.
The Empire canon. Why don't you give me your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was this. I only have a couple of S tier items, and this was one of them. This set is perfect, and it's funny because it never had. I was looking at the box. I can't see it, but I'm sure you have it up on the screen right now. But that it never had artwork because this set was actually designed for the 6th edition starter.
Yep.
And so then they just repackaged it on its own, and it is so good. I almost feel like it has to be a Perry sculpt, but I don't know because it has all of those historical influences, especially from like Renaissance that you would expect from the Perry brothers. This crew looks fantastic. We're talking about like true multi-part options that you could swap the torsos between the legs and the crew.
Yep.
It comes with lots of accessories for the cannon, and critically, the cannon is the best cannon Games Workshop has ever put out to this day. And there's nothing else in the market like this, because I've tried to do conversions with, speaking of the Perrys, like their Civil War line, their Napoleonics, Victrix has some plastic cannons. Nothing holds a candle to the. You talked about this cannon looking imposing. It has a real presence in the battlefield. It's fantastic. So this is one of my S tiers.
Yeah, it took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, yeah, it's got everything, and even just like the small little accessories like the barrels and chests, like just such a big difference maker. It's such a fun kit, even like if you're not into like the gaming part of it and you just want a model to collect. This is such a cool model, like, and you can make such a fun little diorama with it. Like, this is an awesome kit.
I I've seen people do that. Yeah, like even like in an orc army taking because like my brother and I picked up the starter set and like he was playing orcs and I was playing Empire. But I've seen people do similar things where like you take the cannon and like make like a little vignette where like orcs are overrunning the cannon. It's just because that it's so versatile
Yeah.
and it's really beautifully sculpted. I can't stress that enough. And I didn't even mention that it comes with a mortar option with like a different backing to it as well.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
feet, and so it actually looks like a completely different weapon. It's not just like a barrel swap.
Yeah, and like if you like, it comes with enough extra bits and stuff, and if you're collecting, you probably have enough to make both the mortar and the cannon.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
I gotta agree with S tier. One of the coolest models ever for plastic ranges.
Fantastic.
And then I think this is one of the weaker ones, but it makes sense. And I didn't even realize they made this separate. But again, it makes sense why they did make this separate. Is the Empire Detachment? It comes with like a bit of the handguns and spearmen, and this is from essentially the 6th edition starter set. I started with 6th edition, so my brother had Empire, I had Orcs.
Yeah.
So similar story to you, basically. But I'd never realized until I was making the tier list here that they made this a separate model kit that you could get with the handguns and the spearmen.
Yes, they did. Yeah, and so it was like weird model counts because back in 6th edition you had ranks of 4, so lots of things had like 8 and 16 for counts, and this was one such example. And as you pointed out, this was the models that came in the starter set for the Empire. And yeah, they like the design is very cool because it mirrors what we see on like the crew, but I think the details are a little softer, especially on the faces, like the hands, because they're essentially monopose models. Like on the handguns, you could attach the guns in different angles, but they're, in the same loading poses or firing poses. And then same thing with the spearmen, where really the only option you had was to glue the shield. And the shield, fortunately, it's a cool shield. It's that like lion round shield.
Oh yeah, I collect a bunch of those.
Yeah.
I try and hoard those.
Yeah, and I've seen really cool conversions actually where people drill out the spears to make pikemen out of them. But beyond that, this is a B set for me because it like again the design I think is fantastic. It was a real workhorse set when it came out at the time, and it was cool that they released it like this separately, almost like it was by demand because people were tired of picking up starter sets in order to get the spearmen handgunners. But yeah, this for me is definitely less strong than the cannon.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on basically all those points. It's interesting because I think the spear arms, like especially for this time, usually they're a lot like bigger and wonkier looking. I think these ones are like okay looking, like their hands don't look insane or anything.
Yeah, the proportions were good, especially considering again these were essentially monopose model. I think like with the spearmen, you could attach the spears. The one had the hands attached, and the one was kind of like resting, like a marching pose. But like you said, the proportions are great. I think the design is great. They're just lacking compared to, again, like the cannon in particular.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the Empire Knights. Ooh, this might be an interesting one. So why don't you start with this?
Yeah, this might be controversial. Again, I come back to the point we made during the Bretonians, which is I was really considering, are there other options on the market? And there are. We've talked about Perry miniatures. Their War of the Roses Knights are like a perfect port. They're smaller. Everybody needs to know that. They're definitely smaller, but they are beautifully sculpted. So the shame of this set actually is that for me it would be an A if the horses were better. But I feel the horses, I don't want to say they're unusable because certainly I used plenty of them. Plenty of us have used them, but they're showing their age. Compared to the Riders, this was also a set, if I remember right, this is the one that came with the Knight of Ulrich upgrade sprue with the hammers.
Yeah, it had the Knights Panther stuff. No, it didn't have the Knights Panther.
Right.
Well, it had the shield for them, but it and it did have the hammers and like their heads for what were they called? Knights of Ulrich? I can't remember.
Yeah, the Knights of Ulrich. Yeah, Knights of the White Wolf. Yeah, they're
that's
really. It's like the riders are great. It's more just the horses. I think drag the kit down. Like it would be a kit for me if it were just the riders and the horses look maybe like the horses off of the newer War Altar set from like 7th or 8th edition. If you had those, it would be I think better. But again, there are better options on the market, even from like Wargames Atlantic. Their Renaissance heavy cavalry have some barding options. I think those look better. But yeah, the knights look great. The horses don't. But for me, it's a B set as a result. What do you think?
It's really there's just like those horses really bring them down. Like they're really
Mm.
oversized too. Like they're
Yeah.
massive. I kind of had to agree with you. I think B is good for me. And it's a real shame because I think there's a this I would still argue is still good. Like all those knights helmets are really nice. And one thing I struggle finding, I don't, you probably might have a better option than I do, but frogmouth helmets are kind of hard to find in
Yeah.
plastic. And I really like frogmouths, so
Yeah, I agree. It's funny too. I was actually expecting some of that in the War Games Atlantic medieval knights that they just released, but I don't remember there being any of those in that. So I guess they are kind of later period,
yeah.
but
Frogmouth is like late medieval, early
mhm,
Renaissance.
mhm.
And they didn't have them in that Renaissance. To be honest, I was kind of disappointed with the War Games Atlantic Renaissance Knight kit. I was hoping for some different helmet options.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe that'll be another tier list is the War Games Atlantic plastic
Sure,
line.
we could go through it. I'm ready, man.
Yeah.
This is my bread and butter. I could talk about plastics all day.
All right. I think we're gonna rate this next one pretty highly. It's the Empire Militia.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever played Mordheim or saw the Mordheim starter set, this was like the go-to set. It's probably one of the more talked about Warhammer sets I know about.
Mhm.
It's amazing. You have so many different options. The heads are, I don't know, they have so much character and personality. I don't know what else to really say. It's just got everything you need. And I think I know that you really like that set. The vampire undead vampire pirates. You mixed that with the zombies. Oh, you got such good results. That was such a cool thing.
Yeah, I think that might have been the only time Games Workshop released a multi-set like that. Not like we talked about Beastmen, Gore and Ungra. I'm talking about two separate Games Workshop sets that, as like a special one-time release, they combined into a single pack. Which, as you just alluded to, was I think it was the Zombie Pirates of the Vampire Coast. Is what it was like in a baggie. Like they'd
Yeah.
never sold any sets like that before. But it was the Empire Militia and the Zombies. And the Zombies we'll talk about eventually. But the Militia is such a good set. I actually just did my kit bashing video on all those Victrix warbands, and
Yeah,
I
I saw.
mentioned toward the end of it, it was really fun. And I mentioned that it harkened back to like rainy Sunday afternoons, mashing kits together. And this is the kit that came to my mind when I said that, because that is my experience with this set, even going back into the early 2000s. It's such a good set. Like you said, it has so many options. Even though the head options, like, they're very characterful, they don't have as many as like modern sets like we see from War Games Atlantic or Victrix with like 3 and sometimes 4-to-1 ratios
Mm-hmm.
of heads to bodies. But the ones that are there are all winners. Great pistol options, great weapon options, bow options. We want to make some crossbowmen. Here you go. Here's some options for that. So yeah, it was a real workhorse set for so many different conversions, and I love it to this day. I'm so glad they re-released it for the old world, which the pricing was different, but that's a whole separate conversation we could have a different video about. But
Yeah, it's
it's great.
interesting. I think you get like 40 of them now, and it's like I don't know what the price is in USD, but I think it's 100 Canadian for 40.
Yeah, I think it was like $80 is when I saw
Yeah.
it. And that they're going with like the shopping channel QVC down here, or HSN, where it's like, let me just bundle in more figures and then raise the price.
Yep.
But the per model price is still like $2 to $3 a model, which is a lot compared to, like, again, Perry Miniatures, Victrix, Fireforge, Warlord Games are all like $1 a miniature, right? So
Yep.
it's anyway, fantastic set. This is my other S tier.
Yep.
It's this set because it's just so good. It still holds up.
I mean, I gotta ask you because you probably know better than I do. What would even be the equivalent to the militia set in plastic?
There's really not one.
Yeah.
I had mentioned I did like a kit wish listing video, and what I want is for the Perry brothers to do a set of pirates.
Yeah.
Like like 18th century pirates, and that would probably be the best approximation because, like, it's a hodgepodge. This set, despite being ostensibly like Renaissance, it's pulling on some medieval weaponry. It's pulling in some medieval armor, and it's got pistols, like straight up like 17th, 18th century, like firelock pistols.
Yeah.
I know the Empire's anachronistic that way. It's pulling from all kinds of different sources, but there really isn't anything. Like, from a stylistic standpoint, the best option is probably the North Star's Frostgrave crew from their Ghost Archipelago line.
Oh, right.
But it doesn't come with any pistols, is the problem with it. But from a design standpoint, they're very similar. So if you can source some pistols, which I think is quintessential Empire Militia as far as I'm concerned, that would be a pretty good proxy for them.
All right, moving on. Last one for Empire here is the state troops. Why don't you start us off here?
Sure, this is another solid one, and again, one I think is Perry designed, or at least it straight up looks like Perry designed because it is so historically accurate that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, beautifully detailed. Again, I love that they were still doing the separate torsos from legs. So even though I think there were only 4 legs and 4 torsos, and
Yep.
then like maybe like 6 heads, you can get a lot of variety just from like mixing things around, which many of us did. And also that the halberds, like the 3-part or 2-part halberds, were really fantastic considering when this kit came out. Like better than some modern sets putting out like great weapon or polearm options for plastic. This is another great one for me. Again, I love the design, I love the execution, the options that are in it. It's all really good. I gave it an A. It's not as good as the militia as far as I'm concerned, but I think this is another really solid set.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on A for sure. Like I recently just bought myself one of these sealed and opened it up. That was a little
Yeah,
insane. Um, it is interesting because, like you said, it has like 3 or 4 options, for legs and bodies, but with like there's just enough there to mix them up and make them all look different. And
right.
and the halberds having like slightly different like weapon heads as well is nice. And another thing is that it's easy to glue those halberd heads. Like some other kits, I hate when the weapon has like a separate like attachment point to the pole arm, and
Right.
sometimes it can be really fiddly. This kit, it's pretty easy to glue and everything. Um, yeah, Solid A makes sense to me. Also, the command sprue on this is really really cool. Like
Oh, right.
that banner is really really awesome. Like it's just massive and very imposing. I think it looks really good. And if you have a random horse lying around, there's a body for a horse rider there because I think it was meant for the 6th edition starter set. You got the
That's
command up,
exactly right.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, you can make the infantry command for the spearmen in the starter set, and then you had one like mounted guy. And yeah, the bits that came on that command were so cool. For like, had like the big plume, like hat for the commander, or the armored version, with the face mask that was separate and attachable. Yeah, really good set. Fantastic.
yeah. It makes sense to me because like also like the Wargames Atlantic Conquistadors and the
Mm.
Warlord Games Lanzknecht, I think are probably better options. Although the Warlord Game stuff is a bit smaller in scale. But if you did your whole army that way, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah, and honestly, the warlord, like from a just talking about the halberds, which is like should be the staple of Empire armies. I think these models are better. Like there's a kind of a proportion issue because those warlord models are old Pro Gloria sculpts that Warlord had picked up after their Kickstarter. So I think they designed the arms for the pole arms, like for the halberds,
Right.
separate from the design of the rest of the set. So they look good, but I think if I had to pick and choose, like they cost exactly the same, I would probably choose these Empire State Troops, even for like a Renaissance Landsconnect army. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's fair. And yeah, that's another good point. This kit does work for just Lanzknecht if you're doing another game separately, completely, like not Warhammer at all. That would
and
make, yeah, Lanzknecht.
that's exactly right. And actually, it scales quite nicely because that's another thing we didn't talk about. But the scale creep that we see with Games Workshop into like 7th and 8th edition hadn't really started happening yet. So these figures, like from a scale standpoint, I mean, I know you just picked the box up, but I think they would actually scale up very nicely with some historical models, like from War Games Atlantic. Maybe Perry would be a little bit smaller, but they're going to be close. Like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to mix these in.
Yeah. Well, the problem is just their price because I really
Yeah.
I really wish that Games Workshop released this kit instead of the 7th or 8th edition.
Oh my god.
God, those ones are so bad. But you know what?
I
Maybe
agree. Yeah.
we'll probably save that for another video of going over maybe
Sure,
8th
that's fair.
edition because I think that would
That's
be a
fair.
good one.
Yeah, the pajama empire.
Oh gosh, yeah. High elves are next. High elf archers.
This is another one that I had to be really thoughtful about because these were like among the first sets I ever picked up because I got the starter like I mentioned with my brother, and then I didn't really know what I was doing, so I was just picking up random boxes because we didn't talk about this either. The box art was so good in 6th edition. It
Yeah.
was so captivating and evocative. That's what happened. Like I saw the High Elf Archer box, and I saw there was like rows of High Elf Archers like on a hill, just this painted artwork on the front. I said, I want that, right? And so I picked it up just because of how cool the box art was. I just spent my allowance money for the month on that. It's a good set. It's some of the details, especially like in the face, you'll find are showing their age. It did have a cool option. Like there was a kneeling option, which was cool and kind of novel at the time. I liked the design, but especially like, again, detail on the face, the like robes, like the flowing robes. Compare that to some like modern Victrix sculpts, and you're like, oh, actually, these are kind of flat.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Yeah, more or less the same kind of points. Like it is cool to see some kneeling figures, and compared to almost a lot of the other models here, you're not going to see like different like poses like that. So that's a really cool bit. But like you said, the heads are a little, they're definitely showing their age. Personally, I think this might be a C. Because there's Oathmark makes elves, right? And I think they look.
They do, yes.
Yeah.
I had this then as a C too. What's funny about that though is I've been doing my range of videos on like alternate Games Workshop, my shopping guide videos, and I thought I would be able to do a separate one on elves, but I couldn't because there wasn't enough content. Because other than Oathmark, North Star's Oathmark range, which have a really extensive range of elves, but those are like I love the aesthetic, but it's not for everyone. It's definitely not like Warhammer elves. I said it's much more grounded fantasy, like 70s and 80s fantasy art, kind of like, again, pre-Jackson Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
But other than that, there's Mantic, which I don't particularly like Mantic's take on elves. And that's it. Like, that's kind of, there might be like onesie, twosie sets out there, but that's it. So like some of the best high elf armies I've seen, you talked about like the Games Workshop Lord of the Rings line, is that, like using those figures as, proxy high elves. Just because these are also old.
Yeah, see it goes. The Silver Helms.
Yeah, these are bad. And it has all the same issues that the archers have, like really soft details in the face. They did some, like, I don't want to say weird because it was just a design choice, but like the gemstones on them were kind of playing on what we saw with metal figures in the High Elf range from like 5th edition, where they had like heart gemstones, which I just don't think they age well. Again, it's an aesthetic. It was a much more like 80s, early 90s design, but it's got a lot of that soft details again in the armor, on the face. The lances are kind of like, again, swollen looking, like we saw with the dwarves. And again, talking about the Empire horses being bad, the Silver Helm horses, I think I am fair to say, were unusably bad.
Yeah,
they were static. They were lacking detail, and the heads almost all looked like statue heads because they're exactly the same. So if you had a unit of 10, it was like they were riding on animated statues or something to me.
So what? This is a kit. This is like high elves are like one of the few things I don't really have much. I just wasn't even interested as a kid, so I never really picked them up. So I have the least information on these guys, but I did look at the models and everything. I got to agree with you on the horses. They look really bad. I personally think this might be an F because
I gave it an F. Yeah, and it's a shame because the like the Dragon Princess, the metal Dragon Princess that came out around the same time as this set, had the same horse bodies but different horse heads, and those horse heads are awesome. So like if they had just used those metal heads in this plastic set or designed them like those metal heads, I think it would have been a much more successful kit. But as it stands, like again, if you gave me these models for free, I don't know that I would use them. Like that's how little I like these figures.
Like you said, they are statues, so that's one purpose you could use them for. It's just
sure,
terrain.
Right, yeah. Fluff and gray and some busted up terrain. That would work.
Yeah. And then the last high elf is the High Elf Spearman. I think it's kind of similar to the archers in a lot of ways, like you mentioned. I do kind of like how they look. I don't know.
I do too. I think again, mostly it's a proportion issue with like we saw with the Dark Elf Spearman. The hands are too big for the bodies. The legs are too big compared to like the heads. So it's like little proportion issues that just happen when you're trying to shrink down a 3-up for the sculpting, like the way that they did it at the time, pre-CAD. So yeah, it has some proportion issues. I saw really cool conversions, like where people would kit bash the archers and the spearmen, like mix and match the torso, because you could do that because the torsos and the legs were separate on both sets. So you could make like some armored archers, or you can make some like light spearmen. So anyway, I've seen cool conversions that way. But for me, it's much the same as the archers. It's a solid C. But I would, again, if it was purely just me making this list for myself, I would probably make it a B. But I think if I'm being as objective as I possibly can, this is decidedly a C.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one for sure. And then we have Lizardmen. I actually thought they had another plastic set, but I'm thinking 8th edition or 7th edition, so it just was these two. So the Saurus Warriors. I always thought Lizardmen were cool. And this set especially, I think, was a big glow up from like their 5th edition starter set. And I thought the aesthetics were really cool and everything, and I think they're pretty good. I got no complaints about this one.
Yeah, I think it's similar for me, where the Saurus, I think the only thing that was not an improvement over the 5th edition monopost plastics that came in the starter set was the shields. I wish they had kept the kind of like Aztec-y bronze shields that came in that set. Because the only problem they have, like the shell shields that come in this set are cool looking, but they become really samey. Like when you start painting, because that's all you're doing when you're painting Lizardmen is you're just painting a bunch of scales.
That's
right.
True.
So even the shields now I'm painting scales, so like everything's a scale. So anyway, I think I've seen some cool conversions that way where people, instead of gluing the scale shields on, glue on the old round like bronze shields, and I think that that's a more successful looking model. But these are good. I thought I liked them less than I did when I was going back and taking notes. And I was looking at all these kits again just to remind myself. And yeah, I like these models more than I thought. I ended up giving this set a B again, just because like when you rank up 20 of these guys, they're very similar looking. But it had good options, like the hand weapon options were good, a nice mix of weaponry. They had spear options in there. It's more just that they're kind of boring, like because there's not that much on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the problem with Lizardmen in
Right.
general. Is just like they kind of if you paint all the scales the same way, they're just gonna look like that. You know, I always thought
Yeah.
if I did a Lizardman army, I would do different like scales per unit.
Mm-hmm.
That
That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with B. The Skinks.
This is a weird one for me because I don't normally like monopose models, and these are functionally monopose model, not as monopose again as the 5th edition ones, which were like the archers, that are just single models. But really, like for these, you're just basically choosing a weapon, arm, and a shield because like the heads and everything else is already sculpted on. But I really like these models. They're really well sculpted. The proportions look cool. The design, I think, is a nice, unique take. And they have lots of little like trinkets on them too. If anyone's dealt with them, you'll know they have lots of little like bracelets and necklaces and stuff that make them, I think, more interesting to paint than say the Saurus. So I ended up actually giving this one an A, where I think I would have thought before I went back to look at the set again, it would have been like a B. But I think from a detail standpoint, this is a really solid set, and I think it still holds up. What do you think?
I didn't give this one much thought actually.
Yeah.
And you're kind of convincing me to put this in A actually. Because it is like it is a fun set. They're fun models, especially. And I painted them in a pass for a commission, and I did actually enjoy painting them up. And like you said, there's a lot of small trinkets in there. And yeah, that's one thing the Saurus Warriors are lacking is the amount of like little accessories and stuff you could add to them.
Yeah, there's just a couple. Certainly not as much as the Skinks.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, A is fine with me. I think that's you convinced me.
Cool. Sold.
All right, we've got ogres next, and we're gonna start with the ogre bulls. Why don't you start?
Yeah, I really like the design for the ogres, and when they like, I'll just say here that I never really cared about the rules for the ogres, which is why I never played them. But I thought the design was really good. Like when they came out, sort of like a step, Mongol interpretation of ogres. I thought was unique. I thought was fun, and I thought well executed. The only real issue with the range, and it's just kind of the way they design these figures, is that it's really hard to convert them because they're all kind of upright and static, and you glue the arms in like at the elbow, essentially. So that's what you're choosing as a head option, and then which weapon is kind of going in these hands. So that's the only real issue with them, is that they all kind of start looking like they're in a marching formation because there's not a whole lot of animated poses outside of the metal figures. But I thought it was good. I gave this one a B just because I like the design so much and the details well executed. In part because they're larger models, right? So it's easier to capture detail. But the sprues also came with like extra Noblars. You know, had the Noblar set, but then you had like some extra ones that came with the ogre set, so you can get even more variety. So it was thoughtful that way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a basically similar thing where like the way they made all the sets, they're kind of all interchangeable, and we'll talk about that with the other kits as well. But yeah, I thought their weapons were unique, and like you said, they added a different kind of aesthetic to ogres that I really really enjoyed. Even though it was never an army I wanted to play,
Right.
I thought the models were really cool. And they make good, like, there's the mercenary ogres. Just take the plastic kit. You don't need to get the metal ones, and you can do some fun things with it. And one thing, you mentioned Nobblars. I think I forgot to put the Nobblar plastic. I don't know if they had a separate plastic kit, but I think they did.
They did. Yeah, it was. I should have messaged you on Discord when I spotted that I was
fine.
going through things. And I didn't. I couldn't remember though if it actually came out in 6th edition or if it came out later. But yeah, I don't know if you just want to expand on the Nobblars.
Yeah, let's do that right now. Let me. Yeah. We'll just talk about that now.
Sure.
I don't think they were very monopose. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were a couple that had like loose head options that you could glue on, but they were a lot of like talking about the skinks from 5th edition being just one post. But these were so full of character. Like they're like you had the ones that were standing on each other's backs, right, like piggyback style. They were just like festooned with weapons and trinkets and stuff, like broken glass bottles, little frying pans. They're like halflings, right? That's kind of what they reminded me of, just green skin halflings. But the sculpts were so whimsical and fun. It's a shame that across all editions, even into like the 9th age, which is what I principally play for, my Warhammer Fantasy fix, the rules were just always trash for them if you didn't like spam them. But the sculpts were so much fun.
I remember there was a White Dwarf that had an article on making just a full Nobblar army, and I remember it had like the piggyback riders as a special thing you could take.
Right.
I don't know. Do you feel like that would be an A or a B?
I'd probably give it. I this is where I'm torn, right? Because like my personal philosophy is that plastic should be multi-part, right? Like that's the main point, and these are not multi-part.
No, they're not.
But they're so well done. So I have to give it a B. I think I want to give it an A for design and for whimsy, but I think if I'm being consistent, I would have to give it a B.
Yeah, I agree with you on B. And I'll probably just add that later on.
Sure.
Ogre Bulls. We talked about them already. So where do you feel like we should put them? B as well.
I put them as a B for Bulls. Yeah,
makes sense. And I think one of my more personal favorite ogre models are the Iron Guts. I really like the helmets with the chainmail and everything. The chainmail like veil, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but it's more like Eastern kind of style of helmet, and I really like that. And their weapons look really awesome. I thought they just looked a lot more intimidating, especially compared to the bulls and everything.
Yeah, intimidating and well detailed. Again, going back to the armor design, that the details all still hold up to this day. And my criticism of the bulls was that they're all kind of in this elbows at your sides pose with the weapons just in front of them, whereas these guys had like weapons over their head, right, like coming down into a attacking pose or like holding it in front of them. So there's a lot more, I'd say, animation in the poses of these figures, and the details there. The design is fantastic. You talk about that like chainmail veil. That like a Victrix is doing that with a lot of their Dark Age figures now, just because it's such a cool design.
Oh, yeah, I love that aesthetic.
Yeah, it's really really awesome. So anyway, I gave these an A for, again, it's building on the success of the Bull kit, but I think stronger as a result of being more dynamic.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. On that topic of those chainmail veils, one thing I would actually like to kind of see, maybe from Warhammer or just in general, is more the kip check or like the rust, the face mask. That would be really cool to see on some like models more. I would like a later period like Rus or like Cumin kind of plastic kit out there. So that's one of my things I want from either a historic.
I've been waiting. I'm curious to see if they do it for the old world, because that was like one of the earliest rumors was that Kislev was going to be a faction, and so far we have Cathay, so there's promise there that they might end up doing that.
But I really hope they don't make them look like the Total War versions of Kislev.
No.
Oh god, those are bad.
Yeah, not my favorite. Right, even if you just kind of reuse some of the old metal sculpts for Kislev and just kind of update them with, plastic variants. But for me, I'll be using Victrix anyway. Like their Rus set would be fantastic for Kislev, for Norska.
Yeah.
Again, I play the Ninth Age, so we have like Asklanders. Is kind of like Marauder army of that game system. So anyway, there's so much you can do. But
moving on, we got the Ogre Leadbelchers. Can I say this art from the box, like you mentioned with the High Elf Archers, this really made me want to get the Ogre Leadbelchers. I thought they just looked so cool.
I think the Ogres were among the last boxes that they did the painted artwork for. It was after that, or maybe it was like properly 7th edition, because some of the artwork that we have there is later iteration of the kit. It's not the original artwork that came on it, but I think the Ogres was like one of the last range of sets that had painted artwork, and it's really, really good.
But that's more just on the artwork. The models themselves, I think, are kind of okay, but like the bulls, they look a little static.
They are. The only thing they have over the bulls is that they talking about like the character and whimsy within the Noblar set is you have more of that with the Leadbelchers. Yep. It's actually the same bodies, if I remember right. They just had gun arms to attach, and there were really cool options for that. Again, it was like one was just like a straight up Empire Great Cannon.
Yep.
One was like a mortar you could stuff scrap into the front of to make it much cooler looking. I think some Noblars would go on the shoulders holding torches. There's one guy that has like a cigar in his mouth, like leaning over to light the fuse. So it's a shame. I think this is still a B set for me. Because it, again, has some of the same strengths of the Bull set, but builds on it a little bit in that there's more character, but it's not as good as the Iron Guts, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Like some fun head options and some cool cannon options, but just not enough really there to do something to really bring it to A tier.
Right.
And then I think one of the more extensive plastic lines out there, outside of Empire, I guess, I think is the Orcs and Goblins.
Yeah, and they had a lot that came out in 6th edition too.
Yep.
I was actually just looking at my notes. We still have quite a number of kits to go over. It's cool.
Yeah. There was a lot. I mean, 6th edition was, 1999 till, 2006 or 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It went on for a while.
Yeah. And we're starting with the Orc Boys here for, the Orcs and Goblins. And I have a big bias because this is, one of the first kits I got with the 6th edition starter set as well. It came with a bunch of the Orc Boy regiments. I really like them, but I think they are showing their age now.
Yeah, this was a cool set because it was essentially like a multi-part version of that starter set. The overhead Choppa Boys that came as a starter.
And the Error Boys.
Yep, exactly. So, shame actually that this set didn't have archer options because they would have elevated it for me. But this was just like lots of choppas and spears and shields and stuff like that. And I think they look good, like you said. Especially in the detail category, they're a little more shallow compared to what we see from other companies, even Games Workshop these days. I wanted to give it like a B because I love this set so much. But I think if I'm being objective, again, I think this is more of a C set just because of because even like the proportion issues on it, you can just chalk up to being orcs. So who cares, right? So. Yeah, I think I would give it a C if I'm being as fair as I can be.
Man, I see. I have a big bias with this set. I would rate it a B. That's gonna be hard for me. I do want to mention also with the 40k orcs, this is completely interchangeable with both. So if you wanted to do just
that's a good point.
snake bites or something for 40k, this set mixes really well for that. I really like the command. I like the command sprue specifically. I use a lot with that big bull skull, and the metal mask that the knob gets or the boss gets is really cool.
Yep.
But it is showing its age. You're right.
It is. Well, listen, this is your video.
Yeah.
I'm here as a consultant. So if this is a B for you or an A for you, listen, I'm just here to. I can't even actually see what you're selecting, so you could tell me you're putting it as C. You drop it in the A category, and I won't know if I watch the video back.
It's definitely going in B, I think. I just have too much of a personal love for this set, so
Sure.
you know what?
No issue.
Yeah.
Wait till we get to Vampire Counts.
All right. Yeah, true. Orc Chariot. I think this might be a C for me, actually. I think there's so many cool parts of this kit, but man, I hated assembling this as a kid, and I still hated assembling it later on in life.
Yeah.
And the boars don't look good.
No, the boars are bad. Yeah, again, it's a shame. I've seen really great conversions using the boars from the plastic Boar Boys kit that came in 7th or 8th edition.
Yep.
And it's a simple swap. If you just swap those boars onto this kit, it elevates it like from a C to an A kit. But like you said, it's a real pain to put it together. So, yeah, I had it. Again, I had it as a B, crossed it out, wrote it as a C. I did a lot of that throughout my notes. So, if you're calling it a C, I think we're safe to call it a C.
Yeah, the only thing I want to mention with the Orc Chariot, though, is that I think the Mantic games, like Orc Chariot, looks way worse than it.
Yeah, well, we can do a whole separate video on Mantic. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, I'm still gonna put it at C, but yeah, with some conversion work, or if you're a little more advanced, this set does get better. But yeah. Also, it does have some like really cool bits, like the jaw, like that bone jaw that the orc has.
Yeah.
And also, like, you could use the wood technically. Like, you could find a way to mold them and then just make them for like terrain and stuff like that.
And I think if I remember right, I think there were 3 crew included, even though there were rules for 2 in most editions. But there were some editions where it's like you could pay to have an extra crewman.
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember lots of conversions where you had like an orc hanging off the side of this chariot that can really only fit 2 models on the back of it. So cool stuff like that.
The Goblin Regiment.
Yeah. So can we talk about this in conjunction with the Wolf Riders?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it's essentially this. So those that don't know, this set was very cleverly designed because they're the same models in both sets, because the sprue included rider like leg options, and so like the torsos, you can either put them on the standing options to make the infantry, or on the leg options to make the riders that go in the Wolf Riders set. So I think credit has to be given there, because they did it really successfully, and it's not easy to do. We've seen other companies in a more modern era try the same thing. Actually, incidentally, like the Wargames Atlantic Goblins do the same thing, that they have legs that can go on spiders, and I don't think they did it as successfully as Games Workshop did back in 6th edition here. So yeah, so like for me, the infantry, I'm gonna call it a B, because I think any of, again, the proportion issues, like the big chunky hands, can be chalked up to them just being goblins and looking goofy.
Yep.
And I think it's a really successful set. I think the Wolf Riders are probably a C for me, because the wolves, like the boars, are just looking really old.
Yeah, they're not good.
They don't look like wolves. They look like anteaters or something, like some kind of were-anteater. I don't know.
I've seen a lot of people use like the Space Wolf and Reason Wolves and put the goblins on that. And now I think there's new Wolf Riders for Age of Sigmar, which probably look really good, but I think they're a bit too oversized.
They have like more of them. They have like a Mongol look for them as well, almost like hobgoblins or something like that. They're cool with like 2 goblins in the back of a wolf. That's neat.
Oh, that is fun.
But yeah,
I do like the head, like the specifically the fur capped heads. I do really like.
Great.
Also, I kind of I have a soft spot for orcs and goblins, and I feel like I don't know of a really good other goblin regiment off the top of my head that I'm like, this is better than the like GW version of them. To be honest, I'm very biased. I really like Games Workshop's aesthetic and visuals for orcs and goblins, but I mean, this was my introduction to fantasy. Was Warhammer actually, so maybe it's that too.
Yeah, I agree. Because there are other good options. Like I've talked about the Oathmark range, like their goblins and orcs all look really good, but they're different. Like they're not the more Warcrafty design that we see with the Games Workshop orcs and goblins specifically. So I agree. Again, I think it's nostalgia for me more than anything. That normally I don't like that kind of aesthetic, but for orcs and goblins, for whatever reason, I make a pass because I grew up with it. So yeah, I love these guys. I've painted up many goblin wolf riders and infantry over the years. So soft spot for them.
Yep. All right. And then we have the Night Goblin Regiment.
Yeah, I like this one too for all the same reasons that we talked about. I don't think it had the leg options because there was there was no Night Goblin cavalry. But some of the like weapons that came in the set I actually liked more than what came in the infantry, like the really wicked looking sharp swords. I don't know. I was torn because like when the updated Night Goblins, the more monopose ones that came out in 7th edition came out, I hated them at the time. But then they started growing on me over the years. Like I hated them when they first came out. I said, "You've like ruined." But now, so that's kind of causes this disconnect for me. Where now, when I look back at the old Night Goblins, it's more like those don't look quite right now because the newer ones are kind of the standards. I don't know. I'm really torn on this set. What do you think?
Yeah, I get what you're saying because like the I think they came in Battle for Skull Pass, right? They're like
right.
They're slimmer. The thing is they don't have as much character, especially in the faces. But man, the proportions, like, yeah, you can chalk it up to them being goblins, but I feel like I really noticed the proportions more on the Night Goblin set than I do the normal goblins.
I think it's the big pointy hats too. Like that's part of it. The other proportions are whack, right? But yeah, I agree. I don't like it as much as the regular goblin infantry, which I think I gave a B. So I would give this one a C.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, and then we've got Skaven.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know. Let's start with the Skaven clan rats.
Sure. Do you want to start with this one? I got lots to say.
First thing I want to say with all these kits is I hate their tails. They look like monkey tails or like worms. And I remember White Dwarf specifically showing like use their tail as like intestines or worms. So
thank you for shop.
Yeah. And it's so sad because like the artwork of specifically the clan rat box is so cool. But
with the lightning in the background, like running through a storm. It's incredible.
But it looks way too old for me. I would consider this I'd be okay with C, but I think this is an F. Like
this is an F for me. This is one of my only Fs, and I actually did a video months ago where I was doing like best and worst kits from every manufacturer, and this set is the one that I picked for Games Workshop as their worst set. And it's not actually even the design, like you said. They are goofy. Like, don't get me wrong. The hands are way big. The heads don't really look like rats to me. Like people have said, they look like small, like monkeys. So I actually don't hate the design just because I was so used to playing against them across the field. And I've built dozens of these myself. They are a nightmare to put together and to rank up. I think it was 7 pieces to put one clan rat together.
Oh, wow.
Between the tail, the legs, the arms, the head, glue them onto a base, glue a shield on. And you had to do, as a Skaven player, like 200 plus of these guys. And you could never get them to rank up. And if you did, and then like the tails got wrapped together, like most of us had collections with like 50% of them missing tails because they would just get hooked together and snap. So yeah, they were a real nightmare. And I don't think hold up. I think the new... I haven't had my hands on the newest Skaven that Games Workshop put out because I don't really buy Games Workshop models anymore. But the 7th edition ones were kind of the opposite of the Night Goblins for me. When they came out, I was like, wow, these are fantastic.
Yep.
Such a glow up.
I gotta agree. And even the newer Age of Sigmar versions for Skaven Tide or whatever it was called, they're really nice, actually. And I'm kind of disappointed they didn't do that for Plague Monks yet. They're still using the old Skaven Plague Monks.
Great, yeah.
But let's talk.
Those will hold up.
Yeah. The Skaven Night Runners.
Right.
I think you mentioned to me before about having ninja weapons made them slightly better, but I think they have all the same problem.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. The ninja gear is cool. Like some of them had face masks and stuff, which not only looked cool but actually helped with some of the proportion issues. But the biggest reason that I would not rate this as low is because as skirmishers, you didn't have the ranking issues that you do with the rank and file clan rats. So I would give this, again, if we had a D tier, they would be decidedly D. But I would give them a C instead of an F if I'm being as objective as I can be.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to do this, but at the end we could like rate each faction and like put them onto different tiers of how low we go. But
sure.
It's up to you if you want to do that. But
Sure.
moving on, we've got Skaven Plague Monks, and like I mentioned, this kit is still around somehow.
Yeah, and it does not hold up. I remember even when it came out, it looked bad.
Yeah.
I think there was it was the Lustria campaign, right?
Yep.
They released these alongside. Yeah, so the one thing that they do better are the tails, but not because they're well proportioned. One of my very first videos on my channel, if you go all the way back, was a conversion video on how to, I think, improve the Plague Monks by like filing the swords down and making them like properly sharp instead of just like, sword shaped clubs, and then move the tail. If you move the tail from like the back of it to where it's like peeking out under the robe, it's like night and day. It makes the models look so much better. So I don't know why Games Workshop couldn't figure that out, but yeah, they're not good models. I think the detail is lacking, really soft detail in all of these. Still have ranking issues despite the tails. I think it's because they're like leaning over with the two swords in front of them. So anyway, not have a lot of fun with these guys.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like they are above F just because they are a lot better than the Clan Rats.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, they're still really bad. So I think they're going into C.
Yeah, I put them in C.
Yeah. All right. And I think this is the start of Undead now. We've got the Tomb King. Let's start with the Tomb King skeletons first. Why don't you start us off here?
Sure, it's hard to talk about these without talking about the Vampire Count skeletons, but I'll do my best because the Tomb King skeletons are just the Vampire Count's 6th edition skeletons, but with a different shield. I think it came with like a different head and weapon accessory sprue.
Yeah.
Because it also had bows. Yeah, so it must have been like a separate accessory sprue. But it's the same core skeleton models. And I love the core skeleton models so much. It's funny because like when the old world was re-released and people were complaining about them re-releasing a lot of these old figures, and like initially the complaints were like, how can you re-release these old skeleton models, right, and try to charge me $3 a model? And I'm like, yeah, and they're like, because they look terrible. And I'm like, no, that's not why. It's the pricing that's wrong, not the models. So anyway, I can see that these are old. And that they don't necessarily hold up. These were cool figures. The only thing that like bothered me is that the bows are all in the wrong hand, and that they're not. There's like no firing option. So if you have like 20 of these guys built up as bowmen, they're all just kind of like standing there with like a bow, just kind of like
they're just holding it.
Like, yeah, it's like, okay, we gotta do something here, boys. It's kind of look around. But I gave it a C. Like I wanted to give it a B, but the shields look great. I think all of the like Tomb King specific bits look really well done. But I think give this a C if I'm being as fair as possible. What do you think?
Yeah, I would have to give it a C. And like it does look really jarring seeing like the new Bone Dragon, or even like the Tomb Guard, the new plastic Tomb Guard, like not new, but the newer Tomb Guard beside these Tomb King skeletons, and you can tell it looks a bit weird.
Yeah, I saw some really cool Tomb King conversions using the like 7th edition Vampire Count skeletons, but they did some head swaps or like bit swaps and gave them the Tomb King shields, and they look so good.
Yeah, like all the accessories for the Tomb Kings in this make them way like cooler. Like those shields look awesome and everything.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like there's a lot of really cool skeletons out there nowadays as well. Like the Wargames Atlantic ones are good. The Oathmark ones are great too, I think. And yeah, even Games Workshop.
Not lacking option for Tomb Kings, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think it's C. And this one is interesting to me actually. The Tomb King chariots.
Yeah.
I actually really like these. But, especially for the Tomb King look. Before this, when they were just undead, I believe, they had like that bone chariot, and I thought that thing was cool as hell. But that's like a nostalgia thing for me. But I think this kit is actually really cool. And it's fun to build. I built a bunch of them recently, and I had a lot of fun with it.
I actually had a note here about that bone chariot. That bone chariot was metal as hell. It was like something off of an Iron Maiden cover. But it's these chariots I think are really well done. Again, the proportions are there, the detail in like the chassis of the chariots is there. Cool options for the riders, either to be like properly firing bows or like throwing spears. Had options for that too. So yeah, there's lots of cool stuff. And painted up, I thought these looked really good. I actually rated this one an A. despite the
Ooh.
infantry being a C. I gave this kid an A.
Well, the thing about the infantry is like it's not as noticeable because like the chariot's covering most of their body.
That's true.
Uh, and like they do even have like fun arms and stuff like that too, like with the whip and stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is like the I don't know. If you're looking at a Tomb King army, you're probably seeing chariots, and this is what really makes I think them kind of iconic and different from the just vampire counts. So
I agree.
ooh, this is hard if I want to do B or A. I feel like
Let's do the cavalry real quick. We can come back.
yeah,
And
you're right. You're right. Yeah, the cavalry. I think this is okay, but it still has the problem with the if you're deciding to do the archers that they look a little just lacking.
Yeah, it makes more sense, I guess, as mounted guys because I can actually see them like kind of trotting along, carrying
Yeah.
their bows at their side. But I agree, like it's not. My biggest problem with this set, like I think everything's really well sculpted, and they did shockingly a great job sculpting skeleton horses that look convincing because they sure as hell couldn't sculpt non-undead horses at the
Yeah.
time. So the fact that they pulled these off is like a miracle. But the horses look great. They're just so boring to paint, man. Like when you put these together, it's just bone everything, and then you're gonna paint. If you have a shield option, you're gonna paint a shield. But most of us did the bow option, so you're gonna paint the bow maybe in a color, just so it's not another tan color on this figure, and that's it. That's the whole figure, and you're gonna do that, 15 times.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess that's what makes the Tomb King chariot also way more fun is just the painting
Right.
options in comparison to the list. Because you're right, you just dry brush some bone on it, and you're kind of done. And
Yeah.
it's like add some maybe contrast on like the spears and shields if you
That's
take.
it.
Yeah, you're right. I would say this might be this has to be a C. Even though I agree with you, I think these skeleton horses hold up really well. Yeah. I think I would say C for this, and
Yeah, I give it a C as well for that reason. It's just boring if well detailed.
and you know what, you kind of convinced me with the painting aspect of the Tomb King chariots. They're a fun kit to paint too.
It's all the visual interest, really, for the whole army is in the chariots.
Yeah,
so.
really. Plus, like, even if you're not, again, I'm gonna make this comparison to like people that just use it for modeling and painting. This kit is actually a lot of fun to build and paint, and it looks kind of complicated at first, but it's actually like pretty easy to.
Yeah, much easier than like we talked about the boar chariot that I grew in my hands most of the time before I ever got it assembled. So,
all right. Yeah. And after Tomb Kings, we've got vampire counts, and and we've got the I would argue probably just worse version of the skeletons.
Yeah, it is. I have to be. This was the very first box I ever picked up was these guys, and then I got the 6th edition starter set, and then I got like some high elf stuff, and I got some dwarves. So my early collection was kind of psychotic, but as a result, again, these are the first Games Workshop models, even before like Space Marines, that I ever got my hands on. So it's hard for me to rank them as a C, but they are. Again, I think they would even be a D if we had a D tier. I can't in good conscience call them an F. Because as you said, they're just a worse version of the Tomb King skeletons because they just don't have as many options. But I just had so much fun painting these guys. I even like sculpted with green stuff some little like cloaks for these.
Oh yeah.
Because the artwork on the front had some skeletons with like tattered clothing and stuff. And so I tried doing that. I didn't know how to mix green stuff, so it like never properly cured. But anyway, I was 11 at the time or whatever. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with this set, but it does not hold up compared to other options. I will begrudgingly admit that.
Yeah, it's a sad case. I do some benefits I do like of this set is the hand weapons, like the flail, like it had different weapons. It wasn't just like all sword or like all like spear. It had some fun things about it. I mean, so does the Tomb King. It's the same kit, but without those Tomb King options. But you know what? The artwork is one of my favorite art pieces, especially from this time. Like I just have this box as like just an art piece basically because I just love it so much. Especially as a kid, I loved Undead and everything. And I still do. But yeah, it's got to be C. And the funny thing is the older plastic skeletons before this I think are
Yeah,
actually better.
they're better proportioned for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of prefer them over these. So sadly, they're gonna go and see. One cool skull in there is the one that's like a beast skull. I thought that was always cool.
Oh yeah,
Has
it
like
was
the
cool. And actually, this was one of the sets that shared the command option with the goblins had it,
yeah.
the zombies had it. Yeah, it was like a number of sets that had
I
this like
think
shared
this did the
command.
Skaven have it too?
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it was like this crazy command sprue that showed up in like 4 or 5 different
Yeah,
sets.
like
And as a result, you pick up the skeletons and have like Skaven accessory bits in your bits box. So
and
that was
and,
cool.
and that banner is really cool. Like it's very multi-purposed. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All right. This one I think might be a little controversial, actually, in my opinion. I bet some people will really agree, and some people really disagree with them. Is
Mm-hmm.
the zombies? And I bet both of us like this kit. I think.
Yeah, you'd have to rein me in here on this one again. I think much like your experience with the Orc Boys, this set for me, again, the artwork is also fantastic, among
Yep.
the best the Games Workshop has done in terms of like conveying a feeling. Um, yeah, this was so much fun to put together. Talking about like different bits that you again it had separate torsos from legs, so you can get a lot of variety even from 4 I think different torso and leg options, and like 6 or 7 different heads. And not to mention, you could also like kit bash in like human empire bits with this set, with like some cuttings. The neck attachments were different, but to make even more variety because they're zombies, so you can do whatever you want. And I loved playing with this set so much because there's just so much utility in it. I tried to put it as an A, but I can't in good conscience do that. So we'll call it a B, and move on. That's a B. No one can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It has to be B. Like I love this set too, and it's just like even if like you can just make cool like dead bodies basically or trophies with a lot
Yeah.
of the just the models here. Like it's just such a good like multi-part kit. Like it's everything I want in a multi-part kit.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you're right. It's got to go B. The new zombies and there's other zombies from other lines that do look better, but even like the modern GW zombies look pretty good. I have some complaints about them, but maybe different video for that. But
Mm-hmm.
B.
Cool. Sold.
Yeah.
I accept.
Yeah, I think B is. They have to go B. There's no way they could go A. I don't. Maybe if we were just talking, like if we were time capsuled in like 2004 or 5.
Sure, that would be an interesting take on a video. Is like pretend nothing else exists. We're gonna look at these in a vacuum. How do you rank these? I guess it's more how it is like against each other.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing about this set. This set lasted such a long time. This set came out in
Yeah,
1991, I'm pretty sure, is when this set came out. And it lasted
it's old one.
until like 2019, I want to say, or 2020.
Yeah.
Like, it's had a life. So, you know what? Kudos to that set.
And there's really not like you talked about other options that are on the market, and there are some really good ones. Like even the Mantic zombies are actually pretty good.
Yeah, the Mantic zombies
but
come to mind.
But there's really none that do what this set did in terms of being like gothic horror fantasy with weapon options, with a good mix of like some like the one that had like its stomach ripped open, like with anyway, it was a really crazy cool set. And right, the War Games Atlantic one is really cool because it's got lots of different head options, but none really of like the weapon options that we saw in this of like decaying farm equipment.
Yep.
Right, it's just really neat, and again, evocative is the word I keep coming back to, where it made you really want to kind of build the world that these guys were in. And I haven't really seen that from anybody else that quite captures it in the same way as this set, as you said, from the early 90s did.
Yeah, it's very evocative. And I think Games Workshop's pretty consistent with Undead, to be honest. I think almost all the Undead kits are pretty good. Maybe not the ghouls, but that's again a different video for that one. But I think Games Workshop really knows how to design Undead well throughout their whole period.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, and then we move on to Chaos, and it's kind of surprising they only had these two, but I think this was the time of Hordes of Chaos, so I think Beastmen and Warriors of Chaos and Marauders were.
They were.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's right.
And I don't think the Plastic Demons were out yet as well, so they were all metal still. But let's start with the Warriors of Chaos.
Yeah, and not only do we need to look at the set, on its own merit, but think about what it was replacing, which was, I think, the very first multi-part plastic set that Games Workshop ever put out
Yeah.
was their original like Chaos Warrior
Yep.
Regiment, and which had so much promise. Again, I wasn't playing the game at the time, but I I again talk about unusably bad models. I understand there's the nostalgia element there for people that played at the time, but I can't even like look at them. Like
No,
that's like how
they're so
how
like hunched backed, and like they've
yeah.
got they're really, their sizes are crazy.
Yeah, they're goofy and like and lacking in detail. Their proportions are all over the place. They did not look like. So when these guys came out, that's what I'm getting at. That's the context we have here for when these warriors came out. It was like a record scratch of like, what the hell is that? Like that looks so cool. Like it's yeah. Again, the cloaks on them are awesome. The design is fantastic. The only demerits that they get are one that they're again kind of like the ogre bulls. How and in fact, actually, the design was very similar in the way that you would attach the weapons at the elbow joint.
Yeah.
So really, all you were choosing, like, do you want a shield? Do you want two weapons on this bad boy? And like, you get to choose that, and then you choose a head option. But they looked so good, and again, what they were replacing, it was just such a breath of fresh air. The only thing that like I had a gripe about was that they didn't include a halberd option, which is
Yeah.
like the option everybody wanted to play them with. But other than that, it was, I think, a great set.
Yeah, like this set is just so, like, they're really badass looking and so imposing, and I wouldn't call them the poster boy of like Warhammer, but they're definitely like iconic, I would say.
Yeah,
And like the other thing is, even though they are kind of like not monopose, but a lot like more static, kind of like the ogre
they are
bulls.
static. Yeah, I
Like,
would agree.
I used to cut off like their torso part and just like keep the bottom half with like the chainmail like tabard thing and like the armor perfectly. And I used them for my Black Templars a long time ago with Space Marine
That's
bodies,
close.
and they looked so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they looked super mean, grim, intimidating for like static models. They looked so good. And like
Yeah, they really did.
their head choices were awesome too. Like just
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah, really fantastic. I gave it an A. I thought
yeah,
this was just such a fantastic set when it came out, and I think to the point that we keep coming back because I think A, I kind of can't see the rankings, but I think A was that there's nothing else right
it
on the
still holds
market.
up. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the truth. Is I actually just did a video on shopping guide for alternate fantasy models like non-Games Workshop chaos fantasy models, and this was the only one I struggled with. With like, I have so many options for like marauders, even knights, but like this kind of warrior on foot is again, this is the only set that really does it like this, and it still holds up.
yeah, yeah. Completely agree. Like you need something that's like full plate and heavy armored with cloaks and everything. So you have to mix in like that kind of Viking-ish aesthetic with like
Yeah,
full plate is kind of really hard to do with an alternate set.
yeah, it is.
So,
It is.
and then we have the Marauders of Chaos, and I think these don't hold up. I think these are
Yeah,
bad.
this is kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about with the Warriors. And I just mentioned there's so many. Like if you want, the only thing these have going for them again is for like the Conan nostalgia, crowd that like that, because that they do lean into that a lot. But other than that, like, please just go look at the entire Victrix Dark Age range of
Exactly.
the Marauders, and I'll come up with a half dozen much better options than this. Yeah, I don't think these hold up at all. And even though I had lots of fun painting them when they came out, but they do look kind of goofy now in retrospect.
Yeah, there's not much I can really add. I think they are really bad. They're not like the worst to assemble, so like I think they go into C. Maybe I should have added a D character. Like if I added a D rank, these probably would have gone there just because like
I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think again what's the only F we gave is the clan rats, right?
Clan Rats, Silver Helms, and Thunders and
Oh,
Corvus.
Silver Helms,
Yeah,
Thunders. Yeah. This is a C. I agree. There was no like assembly issues, and it did have like flail options in it.
yeah,
Which was cool. Like I don't think there was a single other plastic set up until the Flagellants in 7th edition that had flails, so that was
that's
just
true.
cool and novel. So yeah, I would call it a C.
All right, and then a last army here we have is the Wood Elves. Let's start with the Wood Elf Glade Rider. Or no, we should start with the Glade Guard actually. Um, I really don't like Wood Elves to begin with.
Yeah.
But I thought their poses were okay, but I really don't like the heads in the set, and I think the Wood
Yeah.
Elves later on look a lot better too. And like they look a little bit thick, I guess is one way to put it. Like
Yeah.
they're just a bit big, and like their proportions don't seem right for an elf compared to like even like the high elf archers or the dark elves. I don't know. There's something about them that I didn't like.
I think it's the cloaks. Like the cloaks
Yeah.
are so bulbous on them that, and it doesn't flow in the direction that you would expect it to with the rest of the model. So I get why they did it that way, but it again when I assemble one of those guys, and I think again it's the cloak, and it's such a dominating part of the model. It's these cloaks that are all flowing out like to the front left, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So when you have a unit of these guys ranked up, they're all like the wind's blowing behind them, firing in the same direction. Anyway, as a result. I agree. I'm not a huge fan, and I'm also weird because I liked the like 5th edition Metal Glade Guard that had like the yellow shield guys.
Oh,
That
yeah.
I'm actually painting up some Oathmark spearmen. You can convert out of their light infantry or their infantry some really great proxies of that like 5th edition Wood Elf aesthetic with yellow shields and all is what I'm doing. But anyways, I loved that. So when they switched to this, I get it. Like you talked about the heads. I don't like them either, but I understand why people liked like the masked heads that came with them, like with the hoods up and stuff. But I just think compared to what came later with the Hobbit range, when they did their like elf rangers that had a very similar design that I thought were executed much better, I think that these are lacking. Just because none of it really felt like it went together between the hoods and the cloaks, all kind of looking like they're going in different directions. So I still gave this one a B for what it's worth. I'm just kind of looking through my notes here just because I thought the details were okay, but certainly not as bad as like the Marauders, which we give a C. But
That's true.
I don't think I can give it an A.
Yeah, I guess. See, I feel like I'd put this in C. Like we put all the other elves into C as well. Well, like the high elf archers, and I feel like it's just along the same lines as those.
They are thin, like they're better proportioned as elves. The infantry than like the high elf archers that came
That's
earlier, because this was toward the end of
Yeah,
6th
it is,
edition.
it is.
These were released, so that was the one thing it had going for it is they look more like elves. There's just something about them, like even like the clothing. I don't know, it just all felt kind of mismatched. So again, the one thing it had going for it is that they looked like elves. I hated the cloaks so much.
Yeah,
It's kind of the same problem with the riders, actually, the Glade Riders.
I'm gonna put it into C. So
Sure.
that's another one we'll disagree on with B and C. But
Sure.
I
don't feel that strongly about it.
Yeah. What Elf Glade Riders? It's those horses that I think really bring these ones down. But
really, I like the horses on this one. It's not as bad as like the high elf ones, certainly, but I would agree that there are like from companies like Victrix who, even compared to the Perrys, who make fantastic horses, Victrix now is making some horses that are just incredibly animated and cool looking. So yeah, certainly not as good as that, but I thought certainly for the time that the horses were more animated than anything we had seen from Games Workshop. But
it's fair. Definitely for its time, but I think just nowadays, I think there's just so many better options in terms of horses. I think the riders themselves are fine, actually.
Better than the infantry, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say B.
Sure, I would do B on that.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot to say on that one, unfortunately.
Sure.
And then we have the last set here, unless I missed anything that you can think of.
No, that's everything I had in my notes. Yeah, I think we talked about the Nobblers being the only one that was missed. But...
Yeah. I mean, someone will comment probably if something is missing.
Yeah. We'll do a separate video for you.
Yeah, just that one specific set.
That's what the people want.
All right, the Wood Elf Dryads.
Yeah.
This one's kind of tricky because I kind of like them.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know. It's a mixed bag.
I think I can articulate it. Yeah, I think I like the models and I hate the units.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it is. Like the individual models look great, but when you rank them all up and you're like 20, they look kind of silly to me. I don't know. I think it's just because they have so much like head plumage from the branches and stuff and they all, despite all of the different options, they do end up looking kind of samey at the end of the day. So I do, again, individual models, especially like painted up, I think they look really good. But when you start ranking them up, I think they're less strong.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm glad in Old World now there's skirmishers and like people will take a
Oh,
unit of
good, they brought that back.
yeah, there's skirmishers and like you take units of like 5 of them at most. You don't make big
Mm.
blobs really, but you could. But you're right. Like once you have more than like 5, it's you start to lose a lot of the character and it just looks like a bunch of moving trees, which I guess is kind of the point. But it
That is the point, yeah.
yeah, but it
I
doesn't
agree with
look
that.
good. It doesn't look good. It'll just
Yeah.
mix into the table usually,
Yeah.
and not in a good way.
Yeah.
But the kit has so many, like it's got a lot of options and everything, and
Yeah, it comes with little like sprites and stuff too,
yeah,
right? Like little forest fairies, yeah.
yeah. I would say this is a B.
I'll give it a B. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wrote down B anyway.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that's everything rated. I don't know if you want to go through like each category and be like, this is the best of this category and this is the worst of each category. My
Sure, I can't see them, but if you could
yeah, hold up.
list them off for us.
I could. I don't know if you'll be able to see my screen if I share it to you. Hold
Let's see. I said I'm kind of an old man, so
on. How's that look for you?
let's see. Oh, I can see it. Look at that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know why I
Yeah,
didn't do this to begin with. Anyways, but I didn't. you,
oh, that's all right. I'm just staring at their bed anyway.
all right, all right. Well, why don't we start like lowest to top? I guess so. Like
Sure, sure.
the worst of the worst. I think it's the clan rats that are the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I have to agree again. I did a video on this exact topic, and they were the ones that came up as worst, not even just of 6th edition, but of any
Just
kit Games Workshop has ever put out. This was my least favorite.
yeah, there's one in contention, but it has nothing to do with 6th edition, and that's like the Age of Sigmar or End Times Morghast Arca. I hate those models so
Oh yeah,
what a pain to build, and they look so weird too.
they don't look good. Yeah, even when you assemble them, I've even seen people do like variant paint jobs to try to like prove that they're not bad, and it is like even when they do that, I'm like, nope, still looks really bad, my guy. Like,
yeah.
it's just not my favorite.
All right. I think the Silvar Helms are better than the Thunders and Quarrelers. It's mostly just
I would agree with that.
the horses. Like at least this kit has it's multi-part. This kit it's hard to say is multi-part when the only options are gun or crossbow.
Mm.
Like yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good lineup.
All right. This one might be a little bit harder to go through, but
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which ones we said would be like D if we had a D
yeah,
tier. Marauders in that category. I think the Skaven Plague Monks and the Night Runners would both be toward the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's most important is just breaking it up that way. Like which ones are
sure.
D, which ones are Ds.
And like I would say skeletons maybe a bit higher. And Gladeguard probably higher too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. Yeah, actually that lineup looks pretty good.
Dwarf.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's a little janky actually. For whatever reason I can't like organize it properly on this like
tier
list.
Better than I could do. I don't even know what you're I don't even know what you're doing this in. So
it's like
better than I could pull.
So I tried the generic like tier list thing, and it had like a bunch of ads, and I even have ad blocker, and it was still being a mess.
Huh,
this is like
crazy.
This is like some open source thing, and like I just made all of this basically, and also that's
Nice.
why you're seeing different like box arts as well. Like it's the same models, it's just like different box arts and everything, just because like it's whatever I could find online, which isn't always easy. But yeah, like the Dwarfs, Skaven, Marauders of Chaos are the lowest of the low, I would say.
I would agree with that. Those were, again, if we had a D tier, I would have thrown all of those in the D tier.
Yeah, for sure. And then the rest are pretty, like, okay-ish, I guess, for C tier.
Yeah.
Like, the skeletons for Tomb Kings are better than the vampire ones. The goblins, I guess, would be probably the higher of C, I would say.
Yeah, because, again, it was kind of skirting the line with B for me. I agree.
Yeah.
But
yeah. All right. And then B tier is interesting. I would say probably, like, Bretonia is closer to the top, and the zombies are at the top. Zombies at the very top, I would say, and then
yeah, I have to, just because I don't think it's true, Rap. If we're being really honest with ourselves, but I like that.
I don't know, man. I just love them so much, and
yeah, I do too.
They have that gothic aesthetic so down.
Yep.
And like the other zombies, I don't think are as like gothic or like classic zombies I can think of. Like they're
Yeah,
more just like trying to be a bit more. I guess I would say realistic, if that makes sense.
yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah, there's just so much fun in this set that again I haven't seen really replicated anywhere else.
and I will say I do like the new set, but I think I still prefer this old zombie kit.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire Knights, I still really like. I'd put them above like the Bretonian Knights Errant, for example. But
Yeah,
like it's just mostly the horses are oversized, but I think the Knights are still pretty good.
yeah, I
Uh,
think the knights are better than the Bretonian knights. I think the Bretonian horses are better than the Empire horses, but that's not really the focal point of the model. So,
yeah, exactly. I think Lizardmen are probably better than Orc Boys. I would say
mm,
that's actually not true. Like we talked about how like they're kind of just all scales, so I guess there's that. And I would say Beastmen are probably better than Lizardmen. Goblins are
yeah,
probably
I do like those Beastmen models. Again, I think they're proper. They're properly placed in the B category, but I think the detail on them still holds up,
yeah.
given that it was one of the earlier 6th edition sets that came out.
Yep, that's true. I would say like lower tier would probably be like the Wood Elves or the oops, yes, it's kind of messed up. Yeah, the Wood Elves I would say are probably lower.
Yeah,
Like the Triads and stuff, and Ogres kind of lower as well. Yeah, I'm okay with that placement.
yep.
Maybe the Empire detachment like somewhere here somewhere. All right, and then we've got A. I'd say Skinks at the bottom. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, this is hard.
This is tough. I like Empire State Troops as the first place. Again, that's my bias coming through. I like
Yeah,
Ogre Ironclad as the second place, to be honest with you. Maybe Warriors above the Chariots.
yeah, I would agree with you on that one too, because it's still like there's skeletons that are like just a bit old and dated still.
Yeah.
So
And the Skinks get the demerit for being, again, functionally mod opposed models. So I think that's a good lineup.
and then for S, I think Militia above Cannon.
That's got to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's pretty
that's
easy.
good. Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks so much for
Cool.
doing this with me and everything. I think we had a
Like
good
a
time
blast, man.
just talking and stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely check out his channel, guys, because he puts out a lot more videos than I ever do. And he's got awesome reviews and everything, and tons of stuff to say about a ton of models. And if this is popular, even if it's not, maybe we'll do this again, because this was fun.
Yeah, I would love to. Again, I could do the same thing for 7th and 8th edition. Even you talked about other manufacturers too. So let us know what you'd like to see. I had a really great time. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, guys, take care, subscribe, and all that. Enjoy.